challenges, because we all know that we've had to pivot. Most of the organizations have been told by the event space they were going to have that they cannot have any events until the end of August. So we know what our challenge is. The prerequisites, we're going to cover those things to make sure that you have a productive and smooth-flowing virtual benefit fundraiser. And then, of course, we're going to share some of the best practices. My counterparts and I have been doing this for the last 3 months. We've found what works and, what's more importantly, what does not work, because we want to make sure that everybody, instead of looking like what they look like in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, they go from this to that. So let's talk about some of the challenges that we're facing today. Of course, we've already mentioned that we need to keep our donors engaged. Some of the challenges with moving to a virtual platform is we're competing with everything under the sun now. Prior to, everybody would be at your hotel meeting room or whatever your venue space is, so everybody's attention was captured. The only thing you had to compete with was the occasional text message letting folks know that they'd been outbid. Today, we're competing with the children, with the pets, with the Amazon and UPS and FedEx deliveries. All of those things are going to keep your donors' attention from being focused on the deed at hand. So we need to make sure that we're keeping your donors engaged. During the best practices, we're going to talk about some of those wonderful things to keep those donors engaged. The other thing that we need to consider is the presentation. Most of these events are 3-hour-long events. Now, we're trying to condense that 3-hour presentation into an hour-long event, and sometimes even shorter than that. Because remember, prior to, the guests would show up 2 by 2, be escorted to their table, drinks would be poured, dinner would be served. So all of that time that's being held in networking and chatting with one another, seeing old friends and meeting new folks, all of that's gone away. So we've got to make sure that that time that you've spent isn't truncated and the message is very valuable. So you've got to shrink that presentation down. The other challenge is you've got to choose your online platform. Prior to, if you've been working with the traditional silent auction with the clipboards and the pins and people would write their names, their phone number, and the dollar amount, that doesn't happen. You don't have that ability. So now you have to consider an online platform to get all of those donations. You also need to consider what virtual platform you're looking at, because there are several, and you need to find the one that's going to work best for you. Sometimes free is not the best price. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit to get the good quality. Today we're using Zoom because we have the ability to use breakout rooms. And for those of you on the call, you'll see that there are 2 feeds of me. We put 1 feed in each breakout room so everybody can have a smaller room to chat with, but yet still see the presentation that's on the main screen. So you need to think about the online platform. So here's some of the prerequisites that we're going to need to speak through. First and foremost, you're going to need to have studio space. And the reason why we need studio space is you need a room big enough to have your executive director, your keynote speaker, their significant others, the rest of your team, the auctioneer, and his team. Because again, if we're working with Zoom, we're going to have breakout rooms. You're going to need to have 1 room host per breakout room. So if you've got 100 or so people logging in, you're going to want to break that audience up to 20 people chunks. So you're going to need to have at least 5 additional folks. So your meeting room or your meeting space needs to accommodate at least 20 or so people. What that's also going to do, it's going to give you some atmosphere. So as the executive director turns the show over to the keynote speaker, everybody in the room is going to clap and applaud and cheer to give that feeling and that energy into the room. For those of you that are old enough to remember the program called MASH, they had a laugh track. So every bad joke, the laugh track would run, and no matter how bad the joke was, you would still snicker because the laugh track was rolling. They actually tried a couple of episodes without the laugh track, and it failed, so they put it back in. In this case, we don't want to put a laugh track in, but we do want to have a space big enough that when the keynote speaker takes the stage, or when the auctioneer takes the stage, everybody can hear the applause. Also, during the live auction, you want to hear the ringman and the room host being able to yell out to make sure that the auctioneer is getting all the bids. Likewise, you don't want it too big because we don't want it to sound like everybody's in a cave. So make sure that your studio space is where it needs to be, big enough to accommodate everybody, small enough to make sure that we still keep all that energy. The other thing that we need to consider is the virtual meeting platform. There are several. Again, we're using Zoom today. but there's also WebEx. Cisco has a platform. Avaya has a platform. There are several platforms out there. Microsoft has the platform, and even Google just introduced their platform. But again, you've got to find the platform that's going to make your event work for you. Not all of these platforms have the ability to have breakout sessions and breakout rooms. So that's something you need to strongly consider. Again, I'm not advocating Zoom, but that's the one that we actually use because we tried it, we know it works, and it's very easy to navigate. Plus, because it's also been a second nature name for most of us, it's no longer something new that we have to figure out. The next thing you have to concern yourself with is the mobile bidding software. There are several out there. In this market, I like using Givergy and GiveSmart. Those are the two really nice ones that I've used. I've worked with them for several years. They work well. Again, there are several platforms out there. Some are big, some are small. Some have so many quirks that if I find out that the organization is working with it, I won't even work with them because the software has failed me too many times in the past. So I'll just simply let the executive director know you can't use this software. I hate to be mean, but we have to make sure that the mobile bidding software works for you and your organization. The other thing you need to make sure that you've got is a good, strong internet pipe. Now, I'm going to take a couple moments here and remind you that Wi-Fi is not internet access. Think of Wi-Fi as the on-ramp to the interstate, and you are driving a Lamborghini. Now, a lot of the cable providers are advertising gigabit Wi-Fi in your home, and that's wonderful. It's great to have a Lamborghini. It's great to see the light turn green and you have a clear on-ramp to the interstate. You slam on the gas, you zip up there at a gig speed, and then you hit the public internet or the public interstate, and it's rush hour, and now that Lamborghini that just went 100 miles up the on-ramp is going 1 mile an hour because the internet provider doesn't have the bandwidth you need. Please make sure that your event space has a rock-solid internet access company. Also, if you have the ability to have a backup internet provider, even if you have to use a Cradlepoint wireless device, make sure that you have a backup plan just in case your primary internet fails, because we don't want your event to go dark. So, now let's talk about some of the best practices. Again, my team and I have been doing this for 3 months. The Benefit Auctioneer Specialist Group, there's 210 of us around the world. Fortunately, we all have a great working relationship and we're sharing a lot of information. So not only is this some of our best practices, but these are being shared by other benefit auctioneer specialists around the globe. So this is the first and foremost thing that we need to make sure that we're doing, is we've got to make sure that we get your teams happy. And the way to do that is send them a couple bottles of wine. On your ticketing, you may want to include a prepackaged thing, maybe from Carrabba's, because Carrabba's has the ability to prepackage their good stuff. You bake it into your ticket cost and then have the folks pick up their food from Carrabba's before the event starts. So while you're having your porch parties or your captain's parties or whatever you want to call it, we know that everybody has food and drink. You open up your event 30 minutes to 45 minutes, maybe even an hour prior to, get everybody in their own breakout room. So the folks that are usually sitting at the captain's table or at Brandy's table or at my table or Bill's table, we put those same folks in a breakout room, again, small enough that everybody can talk to one another, everybody can eat, say hello, socialize, have a drink or three, and get ready for the program. So make sure you get your teams happy and get ready for the ask. The other thing you need to do to make sure everybody's attention stays on the program is play some games. Some of the games that we like to play, of course, are a scavenger hunt. Get a list of 10 common items. On the count of 3, ready, set, go, find a Saints jersey. Not one that somebody's wearing, but go find a Saints jersey, and the first one to bring it back to the screen, or everyone that brings it to the screen to see that we've got the Saints jersey, their name goes into a raffle. And then maybe a vase of flowers or a yellow toothbrush, whatever the case may be, common items that everybody can have, and everybody's name goes into the fishbowl for that fabulous prize. If you've been to any of the black tie events, you'll see us playing heads and tails, where my team sells you a set of LED beads. Right before the live auction, I flip a coin, everybody put your hand on your head or your hand on your tail. Of course, you can't see the tail right now, so you can play hands and hearts, or if you want to donate a case of shampoo, you can play heads or shoulders. It's up to you. but put that game in play right before the program is to start, and that centers everybody's attention on the screen. Because it's a competition, everybody wants to know who wins. Play the game in each breakout room, give everybody in a breakout room the prize, and if you want to have a grand prize later on for the grand person that wins the heads or tails, again, it's up to you. So those are two of the popular games that we've seen a lot. Once you've played the games, prepare for the ask. That's get your program, make sure that each person's presentation is less than 2 minutes. The keynote speaker can be up to 5, but again, remember, you're competing with kids, with pets, and deliveries, so you want to make sure that you keep everybody's attention. If you notice that most news programs, their segments are less than 90 seconds, sometimes 2 minutes, but they know that they've got to get to the next piece of information. So keep your event rolling smooth, keep the energy in the room, and prepare for the ask. Once you've got the ask, you've got to get everybody set, and on your mics, get set, go. Make sure that your message is on point, because that is the key to unlocking their wallets. Your table captains and your porch party captains, they're aware of your organization. They already know, but perhaps you've been invited to one of these events and you're not familiar with the organization. So this is your opportunity to tell everybody in the crowd about your message, who you're helping, why you're helping, where you came from, and why you need their money. Because you've got to share the why. One of the first things you're going to ask if somebody asks you of something, especially for your wallet, is why. Now, we're all familiar with this guy from The Matrix, right? Go like this. There we go. I love his message from the movie, without the why, there is no power. So make sure that you have the why. As an example, for the American Cancer Society, when I first started working with them, they needed 2 additional commuter vans to pick up residents from the airport and bring them to the Hope Lodge. That was what we needed. That was also part of the why. So when I asked the crowd for $10,000, $10,000 will cover the cost of the chassis of the commuter van. So now you know what, and now you know why, because we need the van to pick up people from the airport and bring them back to the Hope Lodge. $10,000 will cover the cost of the chassis, so when the people raised their paddle, they knew you covered the cost of the chassis. We sold the engine for $5,000, all the way down to tanks of gas, so everybody that pledged knew that their dollars was going towards those vans to pick up cancer patients from the airport and bring them to the Hope Lodge. So make sure that your message of why is front and center. And again, keep your presentations short. 2 minutes for people that are sharing their information, 5 minutes at max for the keynote speaker. Keep those presentations short, keep them flowing well. Again, my folks at Showtime Rentals can make sure that the transitions from speaker 1 to speaker 2 is smooth and flowing. Also, when you're doing these, if you're streaming out via Facebook, make sure that you do not use popular music that is licensed, because if you're relying on your Facebook feed, they will shut you down. So keep your presentation short, and during the transitions, make sure that you're playing music that is not licensed or that Facebook could possibly shut your feed down. Now, once you've made the key message, you've told them why, you've presented your message, you've got to ask for the money. And that's when you bring in a professional licensed auctioneer. Make sure that they are licensed in your state, because nobody wants to get in trouble for practicing without a license. So your auctioneer is going to come to the stage, he should bring lots of energy, and he's going to ask for the money. Yes, that's right. Your auctioneer should be able to tell everybody in the crowd that your organization needs their money more than they do, and to donate, and donate heavily. Once you've made the ask, now you've got to do your follow-up homework. You're going to need to make sure that you close the event and send the payment link to everybody. And this is when you will give them the instructions on how to pay for all of those wonderful purchases that they've just made. All of those pledges, we need their credit cards. So if they've registered with the silent auction software, before they can bid on anything, they should have put their credit card information in. It's very safe, it's very secure. You hit the payment link and on it goes. Now, your major donors, your larger donors, they may want to pay with the check instead of the credit card fees. Most of the platforms have the ability to ask the donor to cover those credit card fees, but some of your big ones, they may prefer to write a check, especially if it's in the $10,000 realm. So call your major donors, thank them for attending, give them the option of paying by check, or if they'd like to bring you a 10-pound sack of cash, that's between you and your donor. But you've got that option. And then, more importantly, set the stage for next year. Again, nothing can compete with actually being in front of somebody, shaking their hand, greeting them, introducing them to other people at the event. But the virtual platform has been so popular and allowed such a broader reach that we're actually going to continue the virtual aspects of these events even after we go back into the Audubon Tea Room or back into the Hyatt or back into the Copeland Tower for those face-to-face meetings. If you're working with a school, this is an opportunity for Grandma and Grandpa who may live in Phoenix to log in and actually be a part of the live auction or the presentation. If somebody's being honored, like the Bells and Bows Ball, somebody may be out of town or cannot be there, or maybe they've got other things that are keeping them from flying into New Orleans. So this can be done virtually in addition to the physical event itself. So I have a feeling that these platforms are only going to help us in the long run. So again, set the stage for next year. It might be just virtual, it might be back to normal. Hopefully, it's a blend of both. At this time, we'd like to go ahead and open up the call for questions. So, Miss Brandy, do we have any questions in the queue?
We sure do. Okay, number one, are there any additional virtual games to play other than heads or tails and the scavenger hunt?
Yep, there's a couple of them. Those are the two most popular ones. But most of the platforms have the ability to generate a random raffle ticket number. So you would go online. For those of you that have been to the Superdome lately, if you buy your ticket before the fourth quarter, you can pay your $20 and get 60 numbers, and then it's a 50-50 split. The system generates the numbers automatically and picks a winner automatically, so you can make it nice and fair. Nobody has to worry about anything being kind of weird. The other thing you can do is you can do the parade of prizes. It's a prize draw, so to speak. So each parade of prizes would be listed, and the person buys however many raffle tickets for that particular item, and it goes into the queue, and then again, you draw the winning number from the parade of prizes. So those are an example of two other ones. If you've got other questions or other needs, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to share some of the other popular games that are out there. All right? Next question.
I have one more. How do you help those who are technology challenged?
Okay. For those that are a little shy of the technology, this is why we want to open the event 30 minutes prior to the event actually starting itself. On the bottom third that you saw this morning, or when we were first logging in, you saw how they had our name. This is where you would post a phone number for help. You would also give everybody the opportunity to know, hey, as you're logging in, if you've got questions, if you've got concerns, or if you're being stymied a little bit, call this phone number. It could be the office number. Make sure you've got somebody manned there. Actually, make sure you got a couple of folks, because if you get 2 or 3 phone calls from folks that are not used to this technology, you want to make sure that they can answer the phone and help those donors walk through. Because we're virtual, it's very difficult for us to go over the shoulder. But again, using the chat and the Q&A session, as long as you've got somebody dedicated to answer those questions, so perhaps somebody's logged into the Zoom, but their phone isn't actually on the mobile bidding website, they can actually walk them through, or if they need to, in a worst case scenario, they can pick up the phone and call that donor and show them how to log in on their phone. All right,
Awesome.
Any other questions?
So much. That's it.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we promised you we'd be done in 30 minutes. It looks like we only took 22 and a half moments. So again, thank you so much for dialing in. We hope everyone found some value today. Please share this with your friends and family. Again, I'm Chuck Mutz with Black Tie Auctions, along with my friend Brandy Miller. And from us here at Black Tie Auctions, we say thank you so much. Again, call us if you need, because we want to help you put the fun in your fundraiser. Thank you so much, and good night. I kind of bobbled out.